when I was 21, I became very interested in yoga. And for that reason, I thought it would be interesting to study yoga in the place of yoga's origin. So I decided to go to India. I'd never been to India before. In fact, I had never traveled abroad before besides Canada. So I applied for a passport. I applied for a visa. I got my visa right before I was supposed to leave. I booked my flights, and I decided to go to India to learn. So I eventually got to India. Okay, and I got to this place, this town, this city called Rishikesh. Now, if anyone is interested in learning yoga and you want to learn it in India, I would recommend going to a place called Rishikesh. It's interesting for a couple reasons, but I think the most important is the environment. A lot of big cities are noisy, and there's dust in the air, and you have to always, cross the street, and cars are honking at you. In lots of different countries, but also in India. And even medium-sized cities are quite busy, crowded. So the nice thing about Rishikesh is that there are restrictions on one side of the river about cars. So you won't see a lot of cars, almost no cars. And there are quiet roads for walking from one place to another. You can walk, for example, from where you're living to an ashram to study meditation. You can walk from where you're staying to a cafe and get a cup of coffee, or a nice restaurant to get some Indian food or some Tibetan food. And this is all right next to the Ganges River, the Ganga River. You can sit by the river, and it's pretty clean there. So you can see in the river, you can see people bathing. It's a spiritual place, so you often see religious people bathing in the river, right? It's a spiritual practice. There's a very close spiritual connection between the river and the religion in India. So I was there. I had been there for a couple months, I think, doing regular yoga practice because that's what I was interested in, enjoying the quiet, peaceful environment of this side of the river in Rishikesh, and really just enjoying myself. I would go get coffee and have yogurt in the morning, then I would do yoga, and then I would walk around and I would read, and then I would go somewhere else and maybe learn meditation and then do more yoga later. It was great. It was nice, very peaceful. And one time I was sitting by the river. I was next to this very wide river, the main, most famous river in India, watching, I don't know what I was watching some people play around. It was during a spiritual festival, so there were some people bathing, I think, in the river, doing some ceremonial stuff in the river. Maybe they were putting little boats in the river and floating them off. I think that has a spiritual meaning, although I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, someone came up to me and in a very friendly way started talking with me and said, "Oh, what are you doing here? What's your interest?" Right? So we talked about yoga a little bit, and this seemed like a very nice person. I thought, what a nice guy. What a nice person. And then he later, after 5 minutes of conversation, said, my friends and I are having a party tonight, and you might be interested in joining. Now, one thing to note is that in Rishikesh, alcohol is banned. At least it was when I was there. You're not allowed to drink alcohol. It's totally banned. People do it anyway, secretly, but generally speaking, it's banned because this is a sort of a spiritual area, right? So he said, you want to come to dinner with me and my friends? We would love to have you. It might be fun to just have dinner together. We can cook together. It'll be very interesting. And I didn't know this guy, but we'd had a nice conversation. So I said, yeah, sure. Okay, why not? I hadn't really made many friends while I was there. So I thought, yeah, well, what a friendly person. What a nice, friendly person. So I said, yes, how do I get to where you're going? And he said, oh, it's up there in those mountains, but we can come pick you up. I'll have my friend pick you up at, I think it was 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. I can't remember. on the other side of that bridge over there across the river. He'll pick you up on his motorcycle, and then we'll go up the mountain, and you can go to where we're staying. Now, if this has started to sound like a bad idea to you, well, then you're smarter than I was when I was 21. If you're starting to think, wait a second, this is not going to go well, something's going to happen, then you're probably onto something. You've probably noticed something. Now, this mountain, I was told, had a lot of tigers on it, or had been known to have tigers on it, because it was a pretty quiet mountain. There weren't a lot of people around there, right? It was very densely wooded. A jungle. Well, not quite a jungle, but heavy forest area, basically. And so I said, yeah, sounds great. That sounds like a lot of fun. Stupid me said, oh, sure, stranger, why not? And so at whatever time it was, 6 or maybe 7, I went across the bridge, and there, sure enough, was a guy there and said, Luke, yeah, hi. Oh, I'm head blah blah's friend. I forget his name. And I'm here to pick you up, and we're going to go have dinner, right? And I said, yeah, great. So I got on his motorcycle, and we went up this zigzag road up to the top of this very large mountain, which was on the edge of the city. So pretty far away, right? And I remembered a couple things going up. One was that, wow, this is a very steep road going up, very steep. Okay. 2, no houses really around here. It's pretty empty, just forest. And there were, once in a while you'd see a little house or a small village with a couple houses, but that's about it. Finally, we got to this, I think it was probably 30 minutes later. We got to near the top of this mountain. We got to this compound, okay? And there were a couple houses in this area near the top of the mountain where people lived. And I think we went up to the top floor where the people lived, and we went in, and everyone said hi, and they greeted me, and it was very nice at first. There were a couple people there. I met the guy who had talked to me originally. He said, hi, how are you? I said, oh, good. He said, was it comfortable getting here on the motorcycle? And I said, yeah. That's no problem. It was great. Thanks for inviting me, And then actually they did start cooking. They started cooking. And I started to have a strange vibe. I started to have a vibe of these people really watching me carefully when I wasn't looking at them. And it was just an impression. It was a feeling, but it started to make me feel a little uncomfortable. But I sort of dismissed it. And then the guy who had originally invited me said, hey, can I talk to you? Do you mind if I talk to you alone for a few minutes? And he sat me down on the sofa, and he had a binder. And in this binder, it was a blue binder, I think. In this binder were a bunch of pictures. And the pictures were of people holding jewelry. And I thought, well, that's weird. And he said to me, listen, there's a reason I invited you here. I invited you here because you're an American, and I know that Americans can easily go to Canada and come back to India without worrying about visa stuff, and it's no problem. And you may know that here in India, the prices of gold and silver jewelry are very low compared to the prices in Canada. So this binder is all of the stuff that I have, and also these people here are people who have done this before. Now I started to feel nervous because I felt like, okay, number one, something illegal is about to be suggested to me. Number two, I'm in a situation with people I don't know. Number three, I see that they've started taking alcohol out and drinking, which I know is illegal. So I start to feel like, okay, this might be a group of some bad guys, maybe, right? So I took a drink because I felt kind of pressured into it and tried to show that I was relaxed, but I was starting to feel a kind of wave of nervousness and fear. And he said, I want you to smuggle jewelry I think it was gold and silver jewelry, a bunch of it in a bag to Canada. You can't declare it. I want you to take the jewelry to Canada, drop it off. I have a contact there. Then I want you to fly back here to Rishikesh, and then when you get back, I will pay you a certain fee. And the feeling was, and the guys started to feel like threatening guys. The feeling was now that I was trapped in this place, that if I said no, then something bad was going to happen to me. Suddenly I felt like it was in a situation where I was being asked, because I am an American, now I have to do something illegal. If I refuse to do it immediately, I say, no, I won't do it. This is terrible. You guys can't do this. Then something bad's going to happen to me, right? Or what's going to happen? Am I going to get killed or beaten? Or probably not, right? But still, I felt very afraid. And suddenly, this situation changed from being a dinner where people had invited me to come and eat to a trap where I had been locked into a situation. And suddenly, I had never longed more for freedom, the ability to walk around. And I said, oh, this is interesting. My plan right away was to show genuine interest, to be excited about the idea, to show no hesitation. And so I asked a bunch of questions. Okay, so once I get there, how do I meet the person? And I wanted to show sort of enthusiasm for the idea because I didn't want to show discomfort, because then I was worried that something bad was going to happen to me. I felt like I was in serious danger. So we talked about it for a while, and I said, oh, this is very interesting. And then one of the guys invited me to go upstairs to the rooftop. And so we went up to the rooftop, and I had the distinct impression on the rooftop that out there was this beautiful, wonderful place where people could do whatever they wanted. And I was in a potentially life and death situation, locked in the grip of now these people doing illegal things who wanted me to now do an illegal thing. And if I didn't do the illegal thing, then bad things might happen to me. And I remember looking down there were these two girls with yoga mats walking by this building, and I thought, those two girls are the luckiest girls I've ever seen in my life. And I envied them because I was trapped. Right? And I couldn't, I thought for a second to shout, call the police, come help me. But then I thought, wait a second. Well, if I do that, what's going to happen to me? And if the police come, what if they're friends with the police? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how powerful these guys are, right? So I decided right there at that moment. Oh, and they, by the way, when I got back, had asked me to look at my passport. Can we see your passport and visa? And I showed them, this is my passport and visa. And they were in the corner looking at my passport and studying it carefully, right? So I thought, oh, geez, now I don't even have my passport. My passport has been taken from me in this place. After we went back down, I started to feel really panicked, but decided my best strategy here is to be more into this idea than they are. Right? That's my strategy. And start drinking. And wait until they're drunk too. Okay? And then try to see if I can change the dynamic of the situation. So, that's what I did. We finished cooking. We made stuff together. So these guys were nice in one way. That was the other scary thing about it. I'd always imagined that, people who do criminal things, right, like this, that they do only bad things. No, these guys were laughing and cooking and making food, and at the same time trying to trap foreigners into going to Canada, right? So this is a very conflicting thing, and I felt like I was in this horrible, scary situation. Fear. I've never been that scared before. And so we ate a big dinner. I helped them cook. They were drinking and drinking and drinking. I was drinking, but not as much as them. So I would, show enthusiasm about drinking, but not drink that much, maybe just take a small sip. And they eventually got pretty drunk. We talked about the idea more, and again, my approach was just ask questions. So if I were to do this, how much would I get paid? And then he would say the price, and I'd say, oh, that's not very much, and try to negotiate like, I'm into the idea, but I don't think the price for me is fair, to make it seem like I'm with them, not against them, right? And by the time we finished eating. Everyone was fairly drunk. I wasn't, but I had some drinks. And they started singing, and it started to get pretty late. I think it was maybe 11 or 12 o'clock. And no, it was later than that. I remember it was after midnight because I asked what time it was. And they said, oh, it's I can't remember what it was. Might have been 12:30, might have been 1. I don't remember. So I said, it's pretty late. I should probably go home. And he said, well, are we going to do this? And I said, yes, I think we are, but I need to give it some thought, and then I'll call you in the morning. Can I get your phone number? So I got his phone number. I wrote it down, and then I said, well, how can I get home? And he said, oh, my friend will take you home on his motorcycle. And my first thought was, great. A drunk man on a motorcycle going down a mountain with roads like this, zigzag roads. Now I was scared for a different reason. So at the same time, I was relieved that I was able to go, and now scared that I was going to have to be on a mountain road with a very drunk man on a mountain full of tigers. So he said, I said, well, I'm a little nervous about this. He's been drinking. He said, oh, it's fine. I will have another person sit behind you to keep you safe, as though somehow a person in front and a person behind would add padding or something. I don't know, if we were to crash. So 3 grown men got on one motorcycle. The guy who had picked me up was driving. I was in the middle, and there was another guy behind me to wrap his arms around me like a seatbelt and saying it's safe somehow. This guy and this guy were drunker than drunk. They were extremely drunk. Okay, this road is like this. It goes down and zigzags back and forth. And remember, I'm thinking tigers. So you would think he would go slowly. He flew down the mountain on the motorcycle back and forth. It was like zzz, zzz, zzz. And I'm thinking either we're going to die because he's going to crash because he's drunk, or we're going to die because a tiger jumps out of the trees and attacks us and kills us. So I was terrified. And finally, we made it to the bottom. He said, do you want me to take you to your home? I didn't want them to know where my home was, where I was staying. So I said, no, just take me to the edge of the city, to the bridge. I'll walk across the bridge. Don't worry about it. He said, are you sure? I said, yes. So he said, you're going to call tomorrow? I said, yep, I'm going to call as soon as I get up in the morning. Now I'm just a little tired. I can't think about all these details. I'm still thinking about the price we talked about. So I'll call you in the morning. And so I got across the bridge, and I felt a wave of relief. I was safe from the tigers, safe from dying in a motorcycle accident, and maybe safe from this high-pressure situation where I was going to be asked to smuggle jewelry into Canada, which is, by the way, very illegal. If you get caught doing it, then it's, 20 years in prison? I don't know. And so I went to bed. I got up in the morning. I packed my bags. I called the number that he had given me and said, you know what? I've been thinking it over. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it just because I've got to leave the city pretty soon, and I've got a lot of stuff going on. It just, I don't think I can do it. But I did it in a way, I don't remember exactly how I said it. I did it in a way that was like I was still interested and still supported it and hadn't, called the police or something like that. And he said, oh, okay, all right. He didn't seem like he was trying to figure out where I was. So I was relieved. That day, I got on a train and I went to another city. I went to, I think, New Delhi. I got out of that situation because I was worried I was going to run into him on the street somewhere. He would be walking around trying to find me. So that might be the most afraid I've ever been, and the most caged I've ever felt, like I was in a cage and couldn't get out. And I remember that distinct feeling of being afraid on the rooftop in a place that I couldn't get out of. People who had my passport, by the way, I did get my passport back, and seeing these people walking around outside and thinking they have no idea how lucky they are to walk around and go wherever they want to go, right? So that's my scary story. I've got a lot of travel stories. That's one of my travel stories. So Let me know if you guys want to hear others and what sort of stories you'd like to hear. Hopefully next time I can share one that's not so scary. I have nice stories too. Some of them are scary. That's probably the most scary for me, because of the tigers, because of the mountain, because of the criminals and the smugglers. But anyway, that's it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, and don't forget to check out my courses in the links in the description. If you have any questions about the story, let me know in the comments.